Before we start the video, a large thank you to Albright for their immense support to this channel this month via Patreon. Hello guys, and welcome to the first episode of creating a third-person horror survival in Unity. So the first thing you want to do is get a humanoid model, and you want to make sure your model is set to the humanoid setting. Otherwise, the animations you get are not going to work. So go to your character here, just go up here and make sure the animation type is set to humanoid, and then click apply. You can also get every animation I'm using in this video from the third-person controller and vector package, the free locomotion one. I believe every single animation I have here is included in that package. So I'm going to create a folder. I'm going to call it animation controllers. And the first thing I'm going to do is right click and create an animator controller. And I'm just going to call this human. And this is going to control our main character, our player here. I'm going to drag this into the controller section of the animator component attached to the model I have. And then I'm going to go to window. I'm going to go to animation and open the animator window here. Now, we're going to create a locomotion layer so we have some movement. So I'm just going to right click here and create a state from new blend tree. And I'm going to create our locomotion layer. So I'm just going to rename that locomotion. And this is where we're going to handle all the movement of our player. So again, this is on the base layer. Now if we double click this, we can go in here and we have this blend tree section. We can click on that. What we want to do is we want to add two parameters first. We're going to add a float for a horizontal parameter and a float for a vertical parameter. And these will be the parameters on your joystick. Think left and right and up and down. And this is going to control the movement of our player. So after we do that, let's click on the blend tree. And the blend type we want to change to 2D freeform directional. And that allows us to create a movement based on two parameters, which will be our horizontal and our vertical. And now depending on the horizontal and vertical parameters, we will actually be able to play different animations. So, for example, if there's no movement on the vertical and no movement on the horizontal, we'll play our idle animation, which is our player doing nothing. Then if we have, let's say, no movement on the horizontal, but movement on the vertical, so the joystick tilted forward, we will play our walking forward animation. And I think you can get now where I'm going with this. So if we wanted to add some more directions, let's add another field, and we say it will be 1 here on the horizontal and 0 on the vertical. As you can see, that's the right. So that would make us play the walk right animation. So if we do the same thing again, add another motion, and we say -1, you can see the dot will appear over here to the left. As you can see, my mouse is over it now. And then 0 on the vertical, that will be walking left. So what we want to do is we want to create a walking parameter for every direction here. So I'm going to add another one here. And I'm actually just going to drag this one up under walk, because what we're going to do is we're going to make it 0 on the horizontal input, but -1 on the vertical input, and that will be walking backwards. So I know this may be a little bit confusing at first if you haven't done this before, but essentially we're setting up walking directions for every possible direction of the joystick. Now let's add another motion field, and I'm just going to do a few more of these here because we can actually get into, we'll say 1 here for walking right, and 1 here for walking forward right. So then we got to type in walk forward and right. You can do forward and left, you can do backward and right, and backward and left. So I'm just going to quickly fill in the rest of these motions here, and you will see when I'm done, we will actually have a full range of motion walking all the way around in every direction. So let's quickly do this. We'll add a couple more. I'll just add the walking backwards for right and left, and then we'll be good to go. Okay. Now, as you can see, I have every direction. Now, if I move the vertical forward on my animator, my player walks forward. If I move the horizontal up to 1, he'll walk forward and to the right. If I move the horizontal to -1, he'll walk forward and to the left. Now, if we reset this, he's at idle. Now, if we put the vertical to -1, he walks backwards. And if we put the horizontal to -1, he walks backwards to the left. If you put the horizontal to 1, he walks backwards and to the right. So basically, all movement will be controlled just editing these two numbers, the parameters in our animator, horizontal and vertical. And depending on the parameters, we will play an animation. So the animations here will affect this model right here. It is very straightforward. All right, so what we want to do actually now is create an animator manager script. And this is going to manage how we change those numbers. So it's basically going to talk to our animator, and it's going to change those numbers on the fly for us when we use our controller in the future, or when we're pressing keys on the keyboard or using the joystick. So let's start off by saying awake. And let's say animator, a variable of type animator. We're going to call it animator, and we're going to call that in awake. We're going to say animator equals get component animator. Okay, now we want a way to edit the parameters on our animator. So let's make a public void handle animator values. And this will be referenced on another script in the future with our controller. And we're going to change the horizontal and the vertical values on the animator depending on the values we're giving right now to the keyboard or the joystick. So, for example, if you're moving up on the joystick, we're going to change our vertical movement. If you're moving down on the joystick, we're going to change our vertical movement down. So it's going to edit these two parameters, which in turn edits this, which will cause our player to animate. So, there we go. All right, so jumping back into the script here now, what we want to do is actually call on our animator here, and we're just going to say a very straightforward line of logic. We're going to say animator.setFloat, and we're setting the float of the parameter, and we're going to say quotation marks horizontal. So we're changing the float of the parameter horizontal to whatever we pass in this function, horizontal movement. And then we're going to do that with a damp time of 0.1f by time.delta time. And then we're going to copy and paste this and do the exact same thing for the vertical parameter, but we're going to use the vertical movement. So again, in the future, in the next video, we're going to basically pass this function values depending on how much we're moving the joystick or what buttons we're pressing with the keyboard. And then we're going to change the values on the animator to the values we pass. Now you could stop right there and be done. However, I'm going to make two floats, snap horizontal and snap vertical. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to say if horizontal movement is greater than 0, our snap vertical is equal to 1. And I'm going to say if horizontal movement is less than 0, our snapped horizontal is equal to -1. And else snapped horizontal equals 0. And all this does is, and I'm going to do the same thing for the vertical, is it just makes sure that your animator values are always exact. They're either 0 or 1. They're not anything in between, because if you want to add more animations, such as like walking or running, you don't want a blend of something in between the two. You want the exact animation. So for example, if I had a sprinting animation in the future, and my sprinting would need a vertical of 2, and my walking needs a vertical of 1, if I have a vertical of 1.5, then basically I'm going to place something in between a blend of those two animations, which sometimes can look kind of silly. So I personally like using a snap method, and I like snapping the values to an exact number, 0 or 1. You can have something in between too, where you have something like 0.5. And then we can change these values here to snapped horizontal and snapped vertical instead of horizontal and vertical. So I hope that makes sense. Now, if we go back into our scene here now, and we hit play, we can go and drag the animator window to the side here so you can see. And with our player selected or highlighted in the scene, if we actually change these values now, our player will actually move forward. So here we go, moving forward. And now we're moving backwards. And now we're moving backwards and to the right. Now we're moving backwards and to the left. And now we're moving backwards to the right again. So we basically, in the next video, are going to change these values here with controls and inputs. And we're going to set up a camera and move with camera-based movement. So this is just basically animating our player and getting some motion going, but we're actually going to be able to control the motion with a controller or keyboard in the next video. So if you did like this video, don't forget to drop a like and leave a comment. It does help get this series around. And if you're feeling super generous, check out my Patreon below. I will see you guys in the next video.